What is up, guys? Bobgar here, and it's closing thoughts time for $10 Modern White-Green Lifelink. And we played this in a Modern League on Magic Online. We ended up going 3-2, and for our efforts, we got a Fatal Push from the chest we opened, which is pretty sweet. Made our money back and happened to get a pretty good chest opening. Let's jump into the overachievers and underachievers. I think the absolute best card in the deck ended up being Lone Rider. It was just super easy to turn on, and a turn 2 or 3 4/4 first strike lifelink trample is very powerful. So he enables himself if you just play him as a 1/1 and then strap a Bonesplitters or a Rancor to him, and he's also easily activated just with a turn 1 Sacred Cat or Vault Skirge, and then a turn 2 Radiant Fountain to get 2 extra life in addition to that creature swinging in. He flips turn 2 and it's great. So he ended up being kind of a powerhouse in the deck. Sacred Cat was the card I thought was going to be the worst in the deck, and it felt like we won all of our games just by putting in Sacred Cats. Sometimes they died once or twice, but that was fine. You just brought them right back, strapped a whole bunch of Bonesplitters and Rancors to them, and started swinging in. And that won us a lot of games, and it also enabled our later game plays really well, because we didn't care that much if our Sacred Cat really died at all, but especially if it traded up. Like, we just didn't care, so. And that allowed us to flip our Lone Riders and get big Voracious Wurms onto the field. And then the other one, it's kind of a toss-up between Bonesplitters and Rancor. Bonesplitters ended up being better for us, mostly because it was colorless, and it happened to just be the one that we had when we won the games that we won. But yeah, Bonesplitters won us a lot of games, it felt like. It was good enough that at least one person brought in one of their artifact hate cards from their sideboard for it, and it's the only artifact we're running, so they must have thought it was pretty good too. So yeah, Bonesplitters ended up being pretty sweet for us, because we mostly didn't care if our creatures died. A lot of them had first strike, and we would just run in with lifelink and first strike and get in as we could. So yeah, those were the overperformers, and then the underperformers. I'll start with the one that I feel like underperformed the most for me, and that is Ajani's Pridemate. We just never ended up in a situation where it's good. It was good in a few of the test matches I did before the league, so this might not be representative, but I think there's just too many cases where you need too many other pieces for him to be good. And if you're playing against removal heavy decks, they're just going to remove a lot of your engine cards, your Sacred Cats, your Glorybound Initiates. I looked at him as a card where it's like, oh yeah, you play him turn 2, he's a 3/3 by turn 3, and he's at least a 4/4 by turn 4, and that just didn't really end up being the case. Again, it could have been the matchups, it could have been that we didn't draw him in the right places. The most awkward thing about the deck definitely felt like the balance between enablers and payoff cards. And the other ones that were a little bit weak were Always Watching. Not bad, but 3 mana just felt like a lot for the effect we were getting. I put it in because of its combo with Glorybound Initiate, and it is pretty sweet, but the fact that it costs 3 mana might have been a little bit too much for us. I also like the idea that we were pumping up a lot of our guys and being able to keep them back. Felt pretty good if we had a really big worm, or if we had a flipped Lone Rider with first strike. Those are all pretty good things to attack with and keep back. And Angelic Accord, actually, it was probably the hardest one to put on here, because it was good for us in a few games. It definitely did what it was supposed to do. It definitely did its job. I think it's a little too slow for Modern, so I think if I was pricing it up, I would take it out. I definitely felt a little awkward to have in hand sometimes, just because it was hard to have that much mana, and it doesn't have immediate board impact. It's like you need to play it, and then you need to hope that they haven't removed all your other threats, or that you have more things to play down, like Blessed Alliance and things like that. So those were the underperformers, and a lot of things in the middle were also quite good. I mean, I liked Blessed Alliance a lot. Vault Skirge gave Sacred Cat a run for its money. We drew more Sacred Cats, and 2, I just found the ability to bring something back super useful. And Voracious Wurm did what it was supposed to do. It never came in absolutely huge, but it didn't need to. If you bring it down as a 5/5 or a 7/7, that's already really big for Modern. And I think the important thing is you can do that without putting too much work into turning it on. Just playing down your threats and getting in incremental damage with them will get you in, and playing some Radiant Fountains will get you in a state where it can come down as a 5/5 or a 7/7. So that's the deck. Those are some thoughts about it, and then let's talk about upgrade paths. So some of the obvious things that I would do, there's some obvious ones and there's some ones that I'm less sure about. So I haven't actually tried this upgraded version. I built an upgraded version here, but I think the big thing that I was thinking is Path to Exile is really good. I think it's better than Blessed Alliance, even though we have the life gain synergy. And I think Path to Exile makes a lot of sense in the deck. That one seems like an easy include to me over the Blessed Alliance. I mean, you could certainly run both, and that wouldn't be bad. Like maybe 4 paths to Blessed Alliance or something like that. But here I'm saying go with the Blessed Alliance over, or go with Pass over Blessed Alliance. Then I say Sarah Ascendant is better than the Sacred Cat. I actually don't know if that's true, but I think Sarah Ascendant is better than Ajani's Pridemate. And Ajani's Pridemate is, you know, but like I said, it's a payoff card that doesn't self-enable. And Sarah Ascendant is pretty hard for a deck to turn on, but it's another enabler, which I think is more important to us than payoff cards. And it also has the ability to self-enable eventually if we're lucky. Go up a couple ranges of EOS because we're adding in a bunch more 1-drops, and one of those 1-drops is now a payoff card in Sarah Ascendant. So hopefully we can, by the time we get to Ranger of EOS, we'll have over 30 life and can use that. It won't happen all the time. It very much depends on the matchup. In aggro, it won't do that. But in aggro, heck, we might just want to grab 2 Sacred Cats and use the Sacred Cats as chump blockers for a while because we can just play them down and bring them back to life. So Ranger of EOS, basically, even in the case where we don't want Sarah Ascendants, is still very good in our deck. And then finally, the land base. And the land base is the big one. This is the obvious one. I think there were only 2 games out of all the matches we played where we really struggled, either getting green or getting what we needed out of our land base. But we did struggle with it a little bit, and I think this land base that I have spec'd out here would help a lot. For Horizon Canopy, the big reason for that one is we did get flooded quite a few games, even at 20 lands. We just don't have anything that's that expensive. So it's nice to have a way to sack a land and draw a card. Yeah, it costs us a life, but we gain a lot of life anyway. That's not really a big deal. Or it costs us life to tap for mana, not to sack to draw a card. But yeah, I mean, we don't care that much about losing the life. It's the only thing I was trying to get across there. For Razorverge Thicket, probably the best land for the deck. We just don't have anything that expensive, so we don't really need to go higher than 3 lands in most cases, but we want our first 3 lands to always be untapped. And then the typical fetch land, shock land package. 4 fetches, only 2 shocks, and then a couple basics to fetch as well. Just help us get our lands early, get the colors we need, and that way we don't have to worry about mana as much. It's possible, I didn't put it in here. Another card that I considered running was Knight of Meadowgrain, which is a 2/2 first strike lifelink for 2. It's possible that could be a good inclusion in the deck too, just because it combos really well with Bonesplitters and Rancor. I didn't mention it here. I wanted to put it in the original deck, but it was too awkward on mana, and then I realized that Glorybound Initiate is just probably a better card for the deck anyway, given the fact that we want to turn on Voracious Wurm for a lot turn 3. So that's what I went with, but Knight of Meadowgrain would also be a pretty good card in the deck, and I could see going down the Pridemates for it, or maybe one of the Ascendants for it, or something like that. So yeah, this is the list on the left. If we wanted to run a full price list as I have it spec'd here, it would be about 185 online and about 500 in paper. Now, almost all of this is the Horizon Canopies. Those are super expensive. Most of the other stuff isn't too bad. But yeah, mostly land-based, especially Horizon Canopies. Windswept Heath and Razorverge Thicket are a bit too, and even the Temple Gardens run you a little bit. And the Path to Exiles aren't nothing, and the Sarah Ascendants are a little bit too, so that's kind of what you're paying for in it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll ever be a top tier deck. I think we got a little lucky, but I think if you know your meta has a lot of Burn and Zoo, this is actually a pretty good deck to play. Is it better than Soul Sisters? I don't know. It's very different than Soul Sisters. It's much faster than most Soul Sisters decks. Soul Sisters tends to be a little grindier, but it's a little bit similar in terms of the things it has good matchups against. And I certainly think against, you know, the two things I said I thought it had really good matchups against, it does, Zoo and Burn, and we kind of showed that in our matches. We happened to get lucky. We happened to hit 2 Zoo matchups, and we beat them pretty handily. And I didn't feel that outdone in any of the other matchups. In the practice matches, I actually played against Affinity and beat them pretty handily, so I was surprised that we lost to Affinity that bad. I think it was a combination of poor draws for us and good draws from them. But yeah, you know, that happens, and I don't think it's a favorable matchup for us either. I think they're one of the aggro decks that's just too hard for us to block and too hard for us to out lifelink because they get really big really fast, whereas the Zoo decks tend to go wide but a little bit more even. They don't go like, oh, I'll just 10 you for an infect creature this turn. I'll just equip 2 cranial platings and swing for 30 or something. Like they don't have that much explosiveness usually. They're a little bit more consistent but a little less explosive. And when Affinity hits its explosive draws, it is terrifying. Yeah, an Etch Champion we had a lot of trouble dealing with. In the practice match, I happened to get one of those really good draws where I turn 2 flipped a Lone Rider, and my opponent just couldn't deal with it, and they had Next Champion out, and they just couldn't swing into it because the Lone Rider is colorless. But obviously that did not end up happening this time. The Etch Champions were very, very good against us. So that's the way that one goes. I thought we got a little unlucky in that last match too. I mean, I don't think we're favored in it at all. I think combo is one of the hardest matchups for us. But he was so slow to get anything going in that second game. I feel like if we had drawn 1 or 2 of our creatures and played them down instead of just drawing almost all lands, we actually very well might have won that match. So anyway, I had a blast playing the deck. Thank you guys for the suggestions, both Duck to Duck and NedStarksDad. And I hope you enjoyed watching it. I will see you next time. Please leave me comments. Let me know what you think. Give me suggestions. All right, take it easy. I'll see you guys later. Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.